Hey, hi there. Welcome to Section 31, episode number 299. I'm Dan Hammond.
And I am Rogue Schindler.
There used to be a ding. There's no ding anymore. It just says live now. And I'm like,
Ding.
no, all right, I guess we should start.
I keep waiting for the ding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. No ding. What do we got this week? We've got we've got a Tribbles tournament report, which may not be that exciting, but we had a scrapbooking party, so we wrapped it up with a Tribbles game. We did put together a bunch of promo cards. I don't have any of them here to show off, but anyway, they're up in the promenade, including some that are not yet up on the promenade, which are very pretty and very reminiscent of a 1E card. But anyway, we'll get to that probably in a few months, since it was, I think, scheduled for May. We wanted to be way ahead on that. We'll also talk about the animated series finale, which, yeah, all right, we talk about that, and we have a 1E spoiler for what's this set coming Through the Looking Glass. So, what would you like to do first?
Should we get the pain out of the way? Let's rip off the Band-Aid.
You're not talking about the animated series, are you?
I am.
All right, so let's recap what happened. The Enterprise is taking noted Captain April, which is now a Commodore. Commodore April. Commodore. Captain. Commodore April to Babel, where people are going to honor him for some reason and make him forcibly retire because 75 is way too old.
That's the reason they're honoring him, his retirement party.
Which is odd because, not too much later. I mean, how old was McCoy on the Enterprise D?
At least that old.
No, he had to be. He was much more older than 75. It was like 135 or something, wasn't he?
I said at least that old.
Technically, you're correct.
On the D, yeah. That's still correct, yeah. But, that's also 80 years later, so maybe this is the precedent that undoes that policy.
That is certainly possible. All right, so they're taking April. Now, was this the first mention of Captain April? Because I remember seeing, like, when we went to the Quarks, right, at in Vegas, they had the big walking kind of museum as you go toward the ride, and I remember seeing Captain April's name down there. Is this where that came from? Is this where that continuity came from?
It's the first time I recall it being prominently mentioned. I know it's been like an accepted part of the lore, and it's been mentioned in like the novels. I was gonna say the expanded universe. I guess that's the same for Star Wars and Star Trek, but I don't recall it ever being like canonized in the series, unless it was on that the cage. My brain wants to say that there was maybe a mention of when Pike is like, oh, we took this over from Captain April, blah, 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 blah. But it's been a long time since I've seen that. I can't swear to that. Definitely not frequently mentioned, but it is a generally accepted piece of Trek lore. So it was nice to see that brought back. I was very excited when they mentioned him right away in the captain's log. We're transporting Commodore April, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's a great way to end. And then he spoke.
You didn't like the voice he was doing?
Oh, just awful. Like the most annoyingly pretentious British accent. And there are plenty of different British accents that are not like that, but this one was awful.
All right. Well, highly pretentious ambassador at large, Commodore April is being transported to Babel, where a bunch of where he's going to be forced to retire from Starfleet. However, along the way, they're passing some random supernova remnant that's very pretty to look at. So they all, roll down the window and gaze out the front view screen at it, and some ship is coming right at them at some ridiculous speed. And so they get out of the way and get ready to attack. It turns out they just happen to be going in the exact same direction, which was kind of goofy, I thought.
Yeah. It's also kind of goofy that a ship that was, and I'm not exaggerating, going warp 35 was in a scene that long. For a ship moving that quickly, that scene took forever.
Yeah. Based on what we know of how warp speed works, as you get closer and closer to warp 10, you go faster and faster. But in the TOS era, they kind of stopped warp. They didn't really they counted. They kept counting. As you go up and up and up. So they just said, all right, now we're going to warp 14. I think that happened in the original series proper. They were talking about faster than warp 10. They didn't use it as the universal speed limit as they came to in Voyager. That threshold that you can't pass.
Right.
So warp 35. Okay, that's super fast. But you're right. If something is going that incredibly fast, they really shouldn't have that much time to talk about it. You know what I mean?
By the time it hits their sensors, it should be gone.
Yeah. It's like there's a bullet coming out of this. All right, well, what should we? Blah. You don't have time. You shouldn't have time when someone's going at least 3.5 times as fast as you can possibly go ever. All right, so let's say let's just say that maybe they need to recalibrate their scale. Something was coming out there very fast. They got out of the way, and it just went right past them, and it's heading toward the supernova. And Kirk says, well, clearly they're in trouble because they're heading right toward the supernova. They're going to die. We need to help them. So
let's use these chopsticks and catch this fly.
Yeah. Sulu, was it Sulu that shows his aptitude for tractor beams and locks onto the ship going by them at warp 35.
and they have a nominal effect, as Eric's points out. It drags them down to warp 32.
Yeah. So they're slowing down, and Kirk's ship is speeding up. Up to warp 15 or so at some point, but they can't unlock the tractor beams because of super fast speeds and plot, right?
Yes, plot being the operative.
Yeah. So meanwhile, this ship that's going super fast, it's going slow enough to talk to them because they raise them on the communicator, and so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think in 1960, if you saw this for the first time, you're watching, TV's newish, do you think you wouldn't have noticed that it was backward speak just right off the bat?
Well, it was 1973.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't notice. Granted, I was cooking at the same time, but
okay.
I definitely noticed that there was something odd about it. Like it was clearly language, adapted. Bleep, blorp, bloop. Yeah. Not gibberish, but they were saying something and trying very hard to articulate it. But as soon as they mentioned, they're like, oh, they're speaking backwards. Oh, right, of course.
Yeah. All right. So they run it through the translator. Translator said, hey, yeah, they're speaking common, but they're speaking backwards. So they play backwards, and then this lady and says, what are you doing? I'm on a mission. Get the tractor beams off my ship, and you're going to destroy yourself or some nonsense. Kirk says, you, lady, you look attractive. No, he doesn't actually say that, but you can kind of tell in his eyes.
Yes.
I don't want you to die because we haven't had an opportunity to get together yet. So I'm going to try to slow you down so you don't go into the supernova. And she's like, whatever, and just goes right into it. And the Enterprise tries their hardest to get away, and they get pulled through as well. They somehow do not die because they were going fast enough. They were going warp 20-ish.
Yeah, she says later when they try to go back through that she had to go that fast in order to withstand whatever pressures of the supernova. Yeah, technobabble plot.
If you're going to jump through a flaming hoop, you want to do it really fast so you don't get singed, right? So there you go. That's it. That's the reason they had to go.
I was thinking more along the lines of if you're going fast enough into a brick wall, maybe you'll go through the brick wall instead of dying.
I don't think that works how you think it works. All right, so they, commercial break, I'm guessing, and they materialize on the other side, and everything is is white with black stars, and the ship is going backwards, and the other ship's going backwards, and Scotty doesn't know what's going on, and they have to relearn how to fly the ship and do everything backwards.
We have to learn how to fly the ship again. It's a good thing we didn't blow ourselves up.
Yeah. They still have a tractor beam on the ship, but they eventually call her up, and she kind of talks to him. Welcome to my universe. We were explorers. We had to do this to get back, and they're all talking. They're not talking backwards anymore. Everyone's apparently talking backward. Everything's backwards. It's backwards. It's backwards day. It's
And
it's opposite day.
They really beat you over the head with that stick too. It's like, oh, the controls are backwards, and these are backwards, and the stars are backwards, and we must be backwards, and they're not talking backwards. And then she comes on and speaks, and Kirk is like, my God, Spock, we can understand them now. What's happened?
Yes,
And
Captain, you are the slowest person in this universe.
I think possibly, and this is saying something, the most horrifying line in the series. Yes, of course, Captain, because we are now in their reverse universe, our brains are working in reverse.
Because of
so
course
we can understand them.
Yes, because because April's wife, was it Sarah, brought this flower along for obvious plot reasons. They realized that the 1 day this flower with the 1 day lifespan was dying, and now it's blooming again because it's going backwards. All right, everything's going backwards. Okay, that's fine. They need to get home. They do some interesting sci-fi, thinking. They go find, this lady and her son, which is her father or whatever. It's backwards, so her grandfather is her son or whatever. Which they really should have. Everyone should have saw that coming. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure everyone watching saw that coming, but everyone in the show should have saw it coming too. So, something about not playing with her toddler or something like that. Anyway, they what do they do? Oh, all right. So I found this interesting. They overlaid the maps. That's okay. Well, here's Earth in our universe. Here's where we are now. Here's the supernova, and here's the place. Well, we got to find a place. We've got to find a supernova going off, and one in reverse at the same time. So Spock says, "Well, there's one over here, but we could set it off." Apparently, they have the technology to reverse a supernova and wake it up. Okay, that was kind of skipped over, but all right, that's fine. I don't mind that because it was the interesting solution to the problem. Okay, so the lady offers up her ship for some reason to help pull the Enterprise at super fast speed backwards, which just looks terrible.
Right, because they can't go that fast to go through, and she wants to help them.
So she wants to help them, and that was just weird. Yeah, if this works, we'll never know. I'll never see you again. All right, yeah, thanks. See ya.
And they drag it out. Yes, that's right. Because if either we will be successful and we will go through and we will live, or we will explode into little bits and die horribly in flames, very painfully. Either way, unbeknownst to you. So happy trails.
Happy trails, and thanks for the ship. Meanwhile, they're talking about how everyone's reverse aging. Now, they didn't really go over why the accelerated reverse aging. I don't know why they wouldn't just reverse age in the usual time, but all of a sudden, everyone who's young is suddenly an infant and doesn't know what to do anymore. And Spock's, long lived, so he's going to be there for a while. And Kirk all of a sudden. I have to say that the young versions of the crew were probably spot on. I had no complaints about that. They did a great job with that. Young Sulu, and all of a sudden, I don't know what to do, and then Uhura, and even Kirk was like, "All right, I'm good," and then all of a sudden, yeah, where am I at, dude? I don't know what I'm doing here. It was great.
Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here?
I like that. I didn't like that it was, again, I didn't like it was accelerated faster than 1x. It had to be a ridiculous acceleration, which made zero sense.
Yeah, and there was no explanation for it. It was just like, oh, we're going to do this because we thought it would be funny.
Yeah, everything's running backwards, and not only is it running backwards, it's running backwards so fast that everyone's going to be a toddler or born, which means they'll die in like 18 minutes instead of however old they are. Okay. All right. So we're in a reverse dimension. Time doesn't make any sense. Okay. Well, I'll swallow that because it made sense in that we've got this really old guy who, I guess technically, I don't know how the ages would work between Spock and this guy. But since old Commodore April was on board, well, he's going to be young captain age, right, when they need it the most. So that's perfect. He can take command, and Spock can still follow instructions, even though he's adolescent Spock. Okay.
But he's an adolescent Vulcan, so he has a great deal more discipline.
Yes, he can follow instructions. So they get attached to the backwards hoopty, and they also rig up something so it shoots all the weapons at the star, and that's what's going to ignite it and make it go because it's dead. Okay, whatever. One more thing to gloss over. But they shoot the guns, they warp through it, and they're back on the other side, and all of a sudden everyone's happy, but everyone's still children. And
for no reason.
For no reason. Well, they reversed it. Now they're aging positive again, I'm sure. But since time runs normal here in our universe, it's going to be a long time before they are, crewman age again. So
But we have this convenient thing that we've gone to. So let's go back to the well.
Yeah. They say, let's just run them through the transporter because that will magically fix everything. All right. Why? Okay. There are at least 10 questions I'm going to ask right away, but I'm not going to. Okay, we'll go with one. Why didn't they just do that before? I mean, on their way there, they could have just reversed aging a little bit. Okay, why? What? Okay, they decide that they're going to do this, and then April and his wife decide that they're not going to. They've been given this, however 40 years back on their life, and they decide, oh, you know what? Let's just jump ahead anyway because I don't want to relive my life. I don't understand how becoming young and continuing to move forward, not going back in time, just becoming young, would make them relive their decisions that they made in their life. It sounds like they get to have more decisions and more of a life later on. That didn't work for me at all. No.
I saw what they were trying to do, the moral that they were trying to tell, but it did not tell that. That was not it just didn't work.
No, thought it was dumb. Yeah. I thought they were dumb. I thought they were very dumb. I thought that was dumb, and so they apparently,
especially after he spends so much of it being like, oh yes, I guess I have to go there. I've always loved the Enterprise. I sure wish they weren't making me retire. And they're like, oh well, it looks like we might get you back to Babel after all, Commodore. Well, I sure would like to go home, but I don't know if I want to go to Babel. It just means the end of my career. Woe is me, I am old emo Commodore. And then they like, silver platter, here's your chance. But, it wouldn't be Star Trek if they turned down any kind of advanced technology or jump like that.
Yeah, boo, April, you're a terrible person. You think you have, you're trying to make a moral decision, but it's just based on false data. So you lose. Good day. You get no chocolate, and I award you no points. So April goes over to Babel, and they deliver him there. And then it turns out that, hey, since you did such a good job in your stuff, why don't you just continue being an old guy as an ambassador at large? You do not have to. You don't have to retire anymore. Okay. Wouldn't it have been great to do that, with a 40-year-old body instead of a 75-year-old body?
Yeah, hey, you would have got a lot more use out of that.
And a lot less creaky, and, all right, well, there were a number of things that made this episode terrible. But the interesting science fiction aspects of it, aside from the terrible decision-making and flawed logic, I really liked the sci-fi elements of it. I was pleasantly surprised after watching the episode that I was engaged the whole time, even though I didn't agree with some of the decisions they made. I found it terribly fascinating to watch, and I thought granted, the average is artificially low, but I felt like this went on at a high point. I thought this was a better than average episode, which again, when they're all bad, doesn't mean much, but I thought this episode was better than most.
See, I had not quite the exact opposite reaction, but the pacing was so slow. They spend so much time dragging out the explanations. It's like, okay, well, if kids are watching this, we need to go really slow. Okay, you know what, kids? If kids are watching this, they're not going to get this part, and they're not going to be caring because they're watching a space cartoon. And for the adults who are watching this, they're okay. They're intelligent. They get what you're talking about. You do not have to spell it out. Yes, the
Sure.
old people age in reverse. You know, I don't know that that necessarily follows that your father would be your son and your son would be your father, but they just, the pacing of that, the pacing of the going in, and the discussion of the aging process, you know, and then the falling, like the nail in the coffin was falling back on the transporters. Like, oh my god, oh, okay, if we're going to suddenly accelerate aging in reverse when we're going through, why not, I don't know, accelerate aging going forward when you went through? Then everybody's all old and crotchety when you get to the reverse universe, and you're like, what's going on here? And then they can age backwards when they go through the other one. They come out the same age, and there's no need to use the stupid, cheesy transporter trope again. That really bugged me. The turning down, you know, it was like, okay, that's a Star Trek moral imperative.
I think you got the more part right, but the ending you're listening for is on, not all.
Yeah, that was just really frustrating. Again, I think this is a theme for the series. It's an interesting idea that they use parts of later, but on the whole, it was very poorly paced. They took too much time doing one thing and not enough time doing others, and it just ended up. It's like I had the happy feeling when it was done because, hey, this is over.
All right. Well, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as I did. I actually.
Now that said,
yeah.
I would not say I hated it the way I have hated some of these. It was just a bummer to be such a, you know, so close, you know, to maybe a halfway decent episode, and it would just suffered, and it was just kind of blah. But that's kind of on average for these. So
Yeah. As I said, it's a low bar. I think it made it over it. It sounds like maybe you think it ran into it, but
yes,
all right. I there's a couple of things that I was thinking about. One is it makes me want to play that ridiculous 1E premiere dilemma that makes you undo your last two actions.
oh geez,
Temporal causality loop. Yeah, just because every time I play it, everyone looks at the card and reads it like 5 times and has no idea what they do. I can't even remember what I did, last action, much less last turn. So
yeah.
it's terrible. It's a terrible card, and I want to play with it again. But that I really liked where that kind of that Spock problem solving of, okay, that is a supernova on this side, and it's a dead star over here, or it was being born or something over here. So they need to find another one. Okay, well, these are all the possible places in your universe, and these are all the places in our universes where they match up exactly in location. I thought that was awesome, and I think that salvaged the entire episode. I was able to look past all the ridiculous, horrible things just because of that little bit of interesting sci-fi.
I did like that part a lot. You know what I would have liked even more is if they had taken that, instead of been like, oh, we have the power to cause or wake up, stars or supernovas, is actually go through and find the timing. Like, okay, well, this one is about that time and this one's coming up. We go through our data banks and figure out, which ones are about to die, or and they can see what's about to be born, and be like, oh, it's going to be like 30 years until this happens.
Yes, that would have been amazing, because then people would have aged the right rate, right?
Yeah. And then you go through, and like you get to the end and you do the thing. You don't have to futz with any of the aging crap until, okay, now we have to undo everything. And then it becomes like an interesting trope, and, they actually have this interesting experience. You could have had, April and his wife be like, oh, we had, this tremendous gift of all of this additional life we might not have otherwise got to get, and learn about these new cultures. And, maybe that would have made coming back and their decision make a little more sense.
Wow, I like that. I like that a lot better, and I'm disappointed that we can't go back in time and change it because that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I had that moment watching it, going, "Oh, this could have been so good." Um, so that kind of distracted me.
Oh, you know what else I liked? I liked Lieutenant Eric's getting younger. I don't know what it was about the
Yes.
way they drew him, but him getting younger and younger looked really amazing. Whoever did the artwork on that, spectacular.
Yeah, the other ones were like, is he supposed to be younger right now? Like, I'm not really sure, but that one was really good.
All right. Well, we have completed our experiment. I would like to thank anyone who bothered to do the experiment with us. I don't know that we didn't get a lot of emails back about how the things that we did. So probably not. I hope it was enjoyable. There is, well, okay. Overall, I've been, as I think we said when we started, I kind of had wanted to watch the animated series for years, and this is like the first opportunity to really sit down and make me do it because I've heard it was just so bad. And unfortunately, I have to agree with, I'd say about 75% of the episodes, they were awful. But
Yeah.
there were a few that had little bits that I really enjoyed. So I would definitely recommend, if you haven't watched them and we haven't completely ruined it for you, um, the original voices from the actors was fantastic.
Yeah.
The animation sometimes was, okay, they use that shot again of the Enterprise slowly turning towards you, a second time this episode when they really shouldn't have. But, you got some weird looking ships, you got some weird looking aliens, you got Arex and Maress, who are great, interesting characters that they got to add. I mean, we didn't really learn anything about them, we didn't have character development, but, what do you want for a cartoon? I would say go back and if you have the time and the inclination, it was not a terrible drain. An episode a week, okay, an episode every 2 weeks is probably what we about our average. It was not a terrible drain on our happiness overall in our life.
No,
So I would go back and watch them.
I thought it was an interesting experiment, an interesting experience. It's something that a lot like watching the original series. Like, we were not around for the first run. We watched it on reruns as kids, and like I didn't remember a lot of that. I ended up going and rewatching a lot of those, and in like high school and college, and you kind of have to watch it in context. Like, this is a terrible, cheesy looking TV show. Why would you go back and watch this? But it's a lot of what it represents from the time it came out. And this is sort of the similar idea. You have to go into watching this with kind of that grain of salt. This was a cheap way to try and continue the series, and they tried to push some envelopes, which was interesting. Do things that you couldn't do without animation, and sometimes they paid off. They were kind of interesting. Sometimes they were just kind of weird, like Pink Tribbles. But it was not. There weren't a lot of episodes, and there was some interesting Star Trek in there. And you know what? Now I can say I have literally seen all of Star Trek.
Awesome. All right,
So
that is quite an achievement.
yeah,
You know what
unlocked.
what I would kind of liken this to on a much easier scale is reading some of the old 1980s and 90s era paperbacks from that were TOS.
Yes.
Some of them were good, some of them were bad, some of them were really good, some of them were better than others. But this is a much less difficult investment, and you get a couple of interesting, Star Trek stories that you could
Yeah.
maybe pull some lore off of at some point, or use in the future expansion. I thought they were interesting, and if you consider yourself a fan, I would go back and watch them just so you can say that you've watched them. I wouldn't expect to enjoy every one of them. I wouldn't expect to enjoy more than 1 out of 10 of them, but you might find something you like. Like there was that looking back, the episode of Spock and his childhood was interesting.
Yeah.
The that's really the only one that comes to mind, unfortunately. I'm sure there were more. You can
I was thinking the
go
one
back
where
and
they had
look
the tiny city. I thought that was kind of weird, that where they rescued the tiny civilization. That was interesting.
yeah.
Um, yeah, there was some moments, and again, Star Trek is a lot like that. Some of the movies are like that. This is a terrible plot, but there's some fun Star Trek in it. And there's, there are moments in this where you're like, okay, it's Star Trek. Watch it like you watch Voyager. It's not fantastic, but it's the only thing on right now.
It's the only game in town. All right.
For for a lot of fans
Yeah.
like me, it was so hard to get a hold of. It was mostly in lore, and now it's available on Netflix, readily accessible for just about anybody. And so I know there are probably a lot of our listeners or viewers who have seen all the series, but they haven't seen this. So, if you want to unlock that achievement, it's available now.
All right. So we come to it in the end, and I've hinted that there was something else we could do. And it is, you should be, because it is, well, it's going to be awful. I remember when I was in, I don't know, 6th grade or so, I had a record player, right? I had a record with 4 Star Trek stories on it. All right. And it was nothing. It was not, it was TOS. It was not episode reenactments. It wasn't anything in the books, but it was Alan Dean Foster wrote a lot of the stories. And they had voice actors who were close, but not quite to the original guys. These were done in the late 70s, so 76, 79. And there's only, they were published on, looks like Peter Pan Records. There's only 11 stories, and they're like 20 minutes, if that. God, what is this? I just had this one open. It was 10 minutes. So they're really quick. So people have taken them and taken the original sound recording. Some of them they've animated, right, and put on YouTube. The others, it's just a sound. So it's just when they're walking down the corridor, you hear clunk, clunk, clunk. You hear their boots. It's like an old timey, radio.
So like
drama.
A radio play. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. But they're short and they're all Star Trek stories. Now I remember 4 of them. They were right in the middle, and I only, because this record had 4 stories, and I only recognized 2 of them. One of them was about, well, okay, anyway, they're terrible. They're not terrible. They're weird. All right. So I'm saying, why don't we try this? Unless you have a better idea, to continue our dive into crazy TOS. All right.
All right. I have an idea, but it's unrelated, and I think this is a nice segue.
Okay. All right.
So why don't you? Do you have a link to find them all?
Yeah.
And you can post in the show notes so people can try and follow along.
Yeah, I'll post in the show notes. If you go to Memory Alpha and type in Peter Pan Records, you put the records on there. Otherwise, you might get something else,
Second Star to the Right.
Straight on the morning. There's a list. There's 11 stories here. It starts with Passage to Moav. There's far too many vowels in a row there. Moauv. And I honestly haven't listened to it. I can tell you I've listened to, according to one of the records that I've listened to, number 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's going to be a little while before we get into things that I recognize. But and they're probably going to be awful. This is probably a terrible idea. This is probably worse than the animated series. But we're going to try it out. All right.
I was like, Alan Dean Foster, he's like a real author. How bad could it be? But he also wrote Splinter in the Mind's Eye. So.
Oh, you know what? At the very top, it says writers Alan Dean Foster 1 through 3 and 5 through 8. So he only wrote a few of them.
That's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's
like over half.
Yeah. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to listen to Passage Tomorrow. It apparently was made into a comic book. So interesting one way or the other. But we'll listen to Passage Tomorrow. Marov. We'll comment on it next week. If it is absolutely rough and terrible, maybe we won't go on. But we made it through the animated series, so I think we could do anything.
Yeah.
We'll try it out.
We're Red Squadron.
Yeah. That didn't end well for him. I hope you and I are Jake and Nog. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Of course we are.
All right.
I've clearly got the lobes.
I was going to say, I hope you're the writer, because I would be closer to being the engineer.
That's a good point, yeah.
All right.
I can just download engineering equipment.
Oh, put us together. You're going to have an engineer and I'm half an engineer.
That's right.
All right. Okay. So we have survived the animated series. We have a plan for at least next week. I'll post a link in the show notes if you're terribly interested in joining us. If nothing else, it'll be interesting stories. And I'll warn you right now. Ooh, Okay. All right. What else? What else have we got to talk about? I know we got together here. We played some triples. We got a spoiler. What do you want to do next?
Well, how did the triples go? How did the scrapbooking party?
It went very well. We got a big box of cards printed. We got them cut up. I'm going to say about 90%. We accomplished everything that I wanted to get done. There's still some tournament kits left to do that we'll probably do over the next few weeks on Friday nights and extra time when we have just nothing going on. But we've got the future release card done. We've got the 1, 2, 3 regional promos done. We got all the buttons sorted, so that's easy. Although we've already burned through all the regional buttons, so we got to have another of those orders put in. We've got something else we did too. Oh, we did a bunch more Masters promos. We had 1 or 2 outstanding kits for Tribbles League promos. So I got a page or 2 of those printed out, and I got that thing shipped off. That's been in my queue for quite a while. Sorry, Andrea. And we actually had enough that I can put another kit up in the promenade, so I might do that later. Release promos, and yeah, so promenade's good. That was very productive. So thanks to everyone who came out, TV and JD and MK and CP. Yeah, Charlie and Matt and Thomas and JD and myself. Hope I'm not forgetting somebody. Yes, and thanks to Debbie. JD brought his girl over, so Cordelia and Amelia played for hours. That was amazing.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. When that was done, we were wrapping up at about, I don't know, 9:45. And was like, all right, well, that was great. We were super productive. And Thomas says, hey, we're going to play triples. And we're like, all right, I'm game. There's still 4 of us here. Matt and Charlie were like, well, we don't have decks. And I don't remember who it was. Said, well, Debbie said, there might be decks here because, I have a few. So I took all, the 8 or so out and put them on the table. And Charlie picked the deck that was only cards for the most recent, or the second most recent set. Was it Big Trouble Little Kronos?
Clans,
I think. Yeah. So it was nothing but that, and he was. He didn't enjoy himself as much. I think he was very close a number of times, but it just didn't work out. Part of the problem is it's a huge deck, so if you run into a clump of not the card you need, it's trouble.
right.
Matt was playing the IDIC deck and went out like early on for 700,000, and TV was playing a lot of things. Battle. No, wasn't playing Battle. What was he playing? Gosh, I don't even know. One of his own designs. Oh, he was playing bonus. He got the bonus in every round. He got by the 5th round he had 700,000 points.
Wow!
Without going out, he got. How did he get the other 300,000 points? He battled. He didn't battle. He didn't utilize. Maybe I think he might have poisoned and got a few 100,000s. Every round was a little bit long, so he got his bonus every time. It was very well played.
Nice.
I was playing a deck that is designed to get a few Fizbins out and a few Time Warps out, and then go out the next round, which was a lot of fun. I had some fun with that deck. It's not excessively Fizbin. It's not a battle-y Fizbin deck, and we used it to test an errata that was being tested for Fizbin. So even with that errata, I managed to get a few out, and I went out the next round for it had to be 600,000. It wasn't enough, I don't think it was enough to catch Matt. And then I went out again the next round with another couple 100,000. So I bumped over $1 million and ended up winning everything.
Wow.
But it was I think even Charlie went out with a couple 100,000. I think he had 400,000 or 500,000. Everyone had a lot of points. It went long, so it felt like every round had a little bit of a death march. But by the end of it, I mean, we were all scared of anybody going out. I want to say Charlie went out once or twice with a big pile, but without a lot of points. So anyway, it was a good time. I think I played that deck 2 or 3 times, and it's won twice. I'm very happy with how it works. It's a lot of fun. I think I got the idea from one what's his name, Corbett on the boards, or it might have been at Gen Con last year. He was playing something similar.
I remember watching that, and
Yeah.
we were looking at it and going, "Do you have anything to help that go out?" And then because that could be really dangerous, and yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, I remember. There is something to help it go out. There's a few discards in there, and he toxined. No, somebody toxined. Maybe it was Matt that was toxining. I don't know. I got toxined a few times, so that was 3 points. But I got. It seemed like every time I battled, I won, and then got a discard in my in my play pile that would become the target of a toxin later on. Anyway, it was a good round. I had a good time because I felt like I was always in it, so that's always fun. And I would say that if the rest of the testers agree, I think this fix of Fizmin will go through soon. I don't know how soon. I hope it'll go through before the first regional, but I'm not sure. I cannot comment on that.
Cool.
So yeah, it was a good day. It was a long day, but it was a good day. Good day for pizza.
Mm.
All right. Anything else before we get to the spoiler?
Well, the tick just rolled over, so we got new cards.
All right. I'm game. Hey, it's unexpected. Nice.
Yeah, so there's the conversion of unexpected with pregnant trip.
Or a female who has medical. All right. It's placed top owner's draw deck. Wow. Okay. So that went from. Oh, I see. So they removed the exo into medical and just made it a female with medical.
Right.
Neat.
Yeah. So that makes sense. That's kind of cool.
No, they didn't. That's something else entirely. They kind of jumbled up all the requirements. It used to be
Astro and 2
dip or exo and 2 medical, and now it's Astro and 2 exo, which makes sense.
Sure.
Or a female who has medical, place 1 personnel, random selection excluding females on top of owner's draw deck. Okay, very good. I like it. It's 3 lines. It looks great. Looks nice on a 1E template.
Yeah. And then there is Haddock, who is the Vulcan. I think we got him in 2E. Vulcan mirror bodyguard for Spock.
Yeah.
He's got a nice set of skills, particularly for Terran Empire, law and mind meld, bioanthro security, and finally he downloads Vulcan Nerve Pinch.
All right.
Which is cool. One of those Vulcan cards I've always wanted a special download for. And he's 778, which is some respectable stats for
that's a pretty good for the mirror universe.
Yeah. Maybe a little dim for a Vulcan, but
that integrity is pretty good though. That's hard to see.
Yeah, that's true. That was very integritous for Terran Empire, especially in the past. But the highlight.
Wow. All right. So I just clicked to it. Assemble rescue team. Is that what you're talking about?
This is not the image I was expecting when I saw Assemble Rescue Team. I'm thinking like Mako's, slamming power packs into rifles, or like doing the montage, the gear up montage. Nope, it's all the Ferengi sitting at the bar with Nog trying to convince them to go rescue Moogie.
Wow. All right. Siege plays on table. Start of each turn if your unique Ferengi is a captive. Okay. If your unique Ferengi is a captive, you may download the Emperor's New Cloak, or Prisoner Exchange, or Quark, or Nog, or Lek, or a non-mirror Ferengi personnel with Quark in lore. Yikes. All right. So it's start of each turn. Wow, start of each turn. So all you got to do is get one of your people captured, and you could just get all these things out.
Yep. And there are those cards that let you do that now.
Okay. Once per game, you may discard objective to score points when your captured Ferengi is released from a non-alpha quadrant location. Okay. So you need to get your Ferengi captured by someone in the mirror, delta, or gamma quadrant in order to get the points. And then you have to use, you can use Prisoner Exchange to go get them back.
Yep. But there's already, valuable prisoner is very helpful to, that Dominion deck to get the captives over there. And what was there was another, that Zek, or maybe it was just Zek, is like, why don't you go ahead and capture me?
Yeah. No, I was suddenly remembering "Blow You Out of the Stars," the card from Genesis that.
Oh yeah.
But that's backwards. Begin an engagement when you cling on. If you win, place the event on an opponent's ship. That opponent may place one of his or her unique personnel involved in your brig to prevent and destroy this event.
Right. Oh, valuable prisoner works both ways. There's the other tech. The other half of it is if your person is about to be killed, you can say, "Wait, no, we surrender.
Yes.
Take
All
me as
right.
captive instead." And they to your crew or away team in the same quadrant or to internment camp 371.
So, okay, here's the deck. You seed internment camp, you seed that, and then you send your Ferengi recklessly at missions until one of them's captured. And you start getting this stuff out, and then you go get them for 10 points.
Yep.
Okay. All right. That sounds good to me. Looks like there's an article on the first page, too. An unexpected article. It's about unexpected. Okay. Wow. All right.
Well, to go with that, we also have a spoiler.
Yes.
But it's a very special spoiler.
We were sent a message. Should I just read it?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna set this up as the image on here while I read this, so you can. I don't know if it's related or not, but. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Where's the button to do that? Screen share. There we go. There you go. Share. All right. So there we are, and I'll read this note that came with it. Hello, gentlemen. Look at your deck. Now back to mine. Now back to your deck. Now back to mine. Sadly, it isn't mine. But if you had an exclusive Through the Looking Glass spoiler for your podcast, it could look a lot like mine. Look down. Back up. Where are you now? You're at regionals with the deck your deck could look like. What's in your hand? Back to me. I have it. It's the spoiler that works with that deck you love. Look again. The deck is now diamonds. Anything is possible when your deck contains an exclusive Through the Looking Glass spoiler. I have a cat. All right, and the card itself. All right.
Why I have a cat? Is it data?
I don't know. I was amused while your cat was running around a little while ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So the spoiler itself, to go with that ridiculously amusing email, is an event that seems to be unrelated. All right. It's an event. It has an AU icon, which you don't see that a lot. An event with an AU icon. You could use that with things like the card from the Starfleet's collection, throwaway cards.
Oh yeah. Enterprise collection.
The card is Habit of Disappearing, and it's Sulu turning around, looking backwards, like, where'd he go? Right? Is that what that is?
Yep.
All right. Sulu's wearing red. All right. Anyway,
that's because he's Security Chief Sulu.
Yeah, this one. Right. James Tiberius Kirk's enemies often vanished mysteriously. Security Chief Sulu had to gather power with care. All right. Seeds or plays on table. End of each turn, you must discard the top 3 cards of your draw deck, or 1 if you have 3 AU Terran Empire person in play. So at the beginning of each turn, you got to burn 3 cards off your deck, but only 1 if you're playing past Terran Empire or AU Terran Empire. I guess there could be a future Terran Empire. That'd be weird.
Ooh.
Wow. No, okay, we're not going to speculate on that. All right, well, past past Terran Empire in play. All right, then draw a card. Immune to Kevin Exbridge. So that's where the teeth are, right? You have to pitch 3 cards until you have a Terran Empire person in play. So probably the first turn you'd have to pitch 3 cards, unless you go second, and you can special download. I know. I guess you can see the ISS Enterprise.
And there's a mission specialist.
Is there a Terran Empire mission specialist now?
There is.
Oh,
no, not
nice.
now. There always has been.
Huh. Oh, is it like Transporter Chief Kyle or something like that?
Ricky or.
All right. Okay. So so you get, if you have one of those in play. Really, there's a mission specialist you can get out on the first turn.
You're gonna make me question it, but
yeah.
All
right. No, that's good. I mean, that's fine. There's probably a support personnel anyway that you could get out. So starting turn 1, you flip over the top card of your deck, which is funny because that's what you have to do to kill somebody with the the killer
Yeah,
machine, Tantalus Field.
the Tantalus Field.
And then for the rest of the game, seeds are placed on table. Draw a card at the beginning of your turn. That's
Yeah, I even had his name right. Ensign Davis.
Ensign Davis is a
Security treachery.
security. So it's just
Classification.
security treachery. All right. Wow. So pretty much any deck that's willing to run the seed card can have a start of turn draw.
Yep. Yeah, you pitch one and draw one. So that's pretty mighty. I mean, you want to have a sizable deck or a way of retrieving cards
Like war processing.
like ore processing. But that's nice, and I like the requiring the AU icon on there means you have to have some way of seeding AU cards. So if you're gonna start with it, which I think is
Sure.
why they put that on, so that you really have to have committed to playing these.
The Mask of Cargano.
Yes.
You can play. So what I was thinking was, all right, I was right. You know, you can play this first turn. You can start getting card draws at the beginning of your turn. You'll be pitching cards, but all right, that's fine. But that will destroy all of your property logo related cards, right? Because they'll be TOS and not DS9, unless this guy is DS9 because he happened to be from that episode.
No, he's not.
Okay. All right. So it will be difficult to get this to work with DS9 unless you're crazy and you play with the Master of Cargano to make one of your Terran Empire guys AU, which is funny, I think. That's good. So it kind of separates those off a little bit. Or, you know, if you don't care and you're playing a ridiculously big deck and you have a lot of recursion, like you're playing with a lot of isomagnetic disintegrators, just play it in any deck and you'll burn 3 cards off and draw a card at the beginning of your turn.
Yep.
For a moment I said, hey, that'd be really great with a 2E Borg Queen that does that doesn't help.
I was just thinking that. Or the 2E Bajoran, mill your discard pile deck.
Is there any other? I'm trying to think of a 1E style that really wants cards in your discard pile, and I can't think. You know, the problem with relying on Isomagnetic Disintegrator is you better make sure that it's not one of the 3 down, discarded cards.
Well, you want one in there so that when you play it, you can have one back in your deck.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, you don't want to lose them all.
You don't want to lose them all unless you can have a second way of getting a few cards back reliably. I mean, if you get the the Terran Empire past guy, then you'd only be burning 1 card, and you're probably going to be drawing. Well, you're drawing at least 2 cards a turn because you're drawing one at the beginning of your turn and at the end, and you probably have another card draw or 2. So the odds are likely that you will draw it before you discard it. If you only, let's say you're playing with 4, you probably draw 1 before you discard all 4 of them, right?
Yeah, that seems
like a worthy risk. There is a risk.
Well, and if you don't want to, if you're not worried about the 3, if you're playing Terran Empire and you're only discarding the 1, that can be really nice for the new processor, which unless you're playing interrupts or events or other cards are dying or getting discarded early on, it's tough to get. You're not going to get that point by taking a card from your discard pile and putting it in your point area. So that gives you fuel for that right away.
Yeah, I think that works. All right. I think that's an interesting card. I look forward to seeing it, and it makes me want to play. Was it a pain stick, Sanchi to burn cards out of or take cards out of your opponent's discard pile so they can't play them again.
Right.
Fire Sculptor. Just get everything out.
Wow.
All right. Do we have anything else? I think we're good. We got to I get to read a very funny email. We talked about the animated series. We have plans for something that could be horrible, and we had a 1E spoiler. We talked about Tribbles. So I think that's a good show.
I think that is. So we will listen to the new recording, the new
Passage
old
to
recording.
Moav. Yeah.
the project the next phase project, and we'll have that next week. In addition to prep for 1E regionals here in Riza, and I will be freshly back from WonderCon, which is in Los Angeles next weekend. This weekend.
So you're going to miss the 2E tournament this weekend?
I will.
Okay.
So I will be out for that, but there will also be a 2E tournament. Somebody will be there, hopefully at least 4 people, and we can take a look at report for that. But that's all for next week, and that is it for this week. I am Sir Rogue.
And I'm Sir Dan.
And I will remind you all to expand your power in the mirror universe.
And I will discard 3 cards to draw at the beginning.